The 2007 release of The Witcher helped propel the work of Polish fantasy author Andrej Sapkovskis to something of a level of prominence in the games industry. CD Projekt is hoping that The Witcher 2: Assassins of Kings finishes the job. While it certainly looks the part, does this sequel also play like a AAA blockbuster?
I need to know more. Let the feast begin, boys!
The flowering dragon nearly reversed the course of the battle.
The fighting should have scared it off.
Forget the dragon. I need to hear how this story ends.
Even if you've played the first game, you're going to feel like you're jumping into a serialized TV series in its second season when you get into The Witcher 2. You'll be able to follow the plot just fine. It's just that a lot of the backstory stuff that's referenced throughout the course of the game will go right over your head. We suspect that only those familiar with Sapkovskis' fiction will feel completely at home. That said, the experience doesn't lose much for these impenetrable finer points. You'll be hard-pressed to find an RPG that can match The Witcher 2 when it comes to choice and narrative consequence. Your actions in the first chapter of the game determine the specific circumstances you find yourself in during the second and third. And without ruining anything, the differences between two playthroughs can be quite dramatically different, to the extent that the very setting of the second chapter can change depending on your decisions. If you imported a save from the original Witcher, you can expect a few references to your exploits and affiliations, but nothing really pertinent to the story overall.
You stood against us, and the Order never forgets.
Geralt of Rivia and the world he inhabits are cynical, profane, and possessed of a dark humor that's difficult to not be charmed by. The frank tone works in tandem with writing that's sharp, funny, and accomplished to paint a world that's refreshingly human.
Cor Bransel, known as Flip-Arse.
Strange name.
Does everything backwards. Sleeps in daytime, drinks before he eats, and tells women to get dressed before he plows them.
Flip-Arse.
Its gonzo sense of humor provides much in the way of relief from the heavy political machinations that define the main plot. The game as a whole is a lot less inhibited than other RPGs, with tons of colorful language and sex scenes that feel something like you'd see on premium cable when compared to BioWare's PG-13 fare.
Since we're being honest, I'd like to have some wine with you.
Do you know what they'll do to our women if we lose this battle?
Though The Witcher 2 story is seldom far from view throughout its 3 acts, you have plenty of opportunity to get distracted by extracurricular activities, ranging from contracts to hunt down and eradicate monsters, which are much more interesting than they were in the original, to quest chains designed around the amusing sparring, dicing, and arm wrestling minigames. It's good to know that all the time spent around royalty hasn't turned Geralt off to these populist pursuits. Every act is structured around a central location that's comparatively civilized. If you could consider the residents of a corrupt backwater village or the rowdy degenerate soldiers that inhabit a military camp civilized. Though you'll find most quests within easy reach, some of the more interesting bits of the game only reveal themselves if you happen to stumble across them in the wild. This is just one of the many ways in which The Witcher 2 refuses to spoon-feed you.
I've no use for this wine. Won't buy me no beer.
Just like the game doesn't bother to fill you in on the finer points of its mythology, you'll often feel like you've been thrown into the deep end of the pool when playing through the prologue. In place of gentle tutorials to guide you through the specifics of swordplay, magic, stealth, and alchemy, you get a trial by fire. Quite literally. In many respects, much of what you'd consider difficult about the game seems like it's there by design, out of some desire to deliver an uncompromising experience. The Witcher 2's designers have professed to being inspired by Demon Souls, and it shows, but the inadequate tutorials in the prologue feel more like a bit of an oversight.
Fuck you, cocksucker! Fuck you up the arse!
The variability of the experience is also evident from the get-go. The choices you make in sections of the prologue influence how its events play out, and so it goes throughout the rest of the game. Your decisions, big and small, can have ramifications down the road, and it frequently isn't clear when you're in the midst of one of these big turning points. Again, we won't spoil the surprises, but assume you'll want to play through the game at least twice if you want to experience everything. And if you're the sort of player who insists on achieving a perfect playthrough in this kind of RPG, you should learn to let go before you approach The Witcher 2.
Thanks for not giving me a handicap. I'm going back to my camp. Visit me if you want.
A leisurely playthrough can run about 25 to 30 hours, though it can go much longer if you choose to ramble and linger. Rest assured, The Witcher 2's world begs for this kind of exhaustive approach. Factor in the possibilities afforded by the variable plot, plus the aptly named insane difficulty level, which deletes your save file every time you die, and you have a game you could be playing for months on end.
Curses on him! If it wasn't for you, they'd have eaten us.
We owe you our lives, Witcher.
Combat in The Witcher 2 demands focus and cunning. If you want to breeze your way through fights and just take in the story, drop the difficulty to easy and save yourself a world of pain. For those up to the challenge, though, the battle is a gratifying one. If you encounter 2 or more enemies in cramped quarters, you better bring your A game. Luckily for you, Geralt has a number of tricks he can bring to bear to even the odds. Melee combat as a whole feels weighty and lethal, with a significant focus on fighting defensively. Victory means learning to rely on your guard to create openings in your enemy's defenses, and mastering evasive rolls to eke out the best position. If you invest talent points into sword fighting, you eventually acquire an even deadlier repertoire, including the ability to deliver brutal riposts, and eventually unlocking mighty adrenaline-fueled group finishers. Geralt's about more than swordplay, however. If you choose to specialize in magic, the spells at his disposal become more powerful, and the gas tank that powers them bigger, eventually allowing for the same kind of group finishers you'll get from investing in melee. You can also pump points into his alchemy skills, increasing the effectiveness of his bombs, traps, and potions. For the most difficult fights, premeditation is the key to success, and Geralt isn't against doping or tooling up to give himself the edge. Just like you can have armor and weapons crafted from the raw materials you find in the world, so too can you concoct bombs, potions, and booby traps. You can't quaff potions in the midst of combat. If you know a fight is coming, you can prep by downing a few doses to tweak your stats, or otherwise augment your abilities. Often battles that look too difficult after the first failure can be turned around by acquiescing to the performance enhancements, and simply fighting dirty by letting loose the daggers and bombs. Our biggest issue with the combat is that you're forced to invest talent points into abilities that should have been built in, like the ability to parry attacks from all sides, or counter enemy blows. Once you've gotten these taxes out of the way, though, you're free to enjoy some of the most exciting and harrowing combat yet seen in an RPG.
Strange place for an evening walk.
Unless you're looking for adventure.
Even when running on modest hardware, The Witcher 2 looks stunning, with finely crafted environments that feel true to life and seem much vaster than they actually are by dint of their liveliness and detail. If you've got a rig that can handle it on its highest settings, you're in for a treat. Either way, this is one of those future-proofed games that you'll want to come back to as you upgrade your hardware, to see how it looks when it's able to stretch its legs. However you slice it, The Witcher 2 is easily one of the best-looking games out there, and the prettiest RPG, period. The game also does a great job with characterization, with a cast that boasts cool, vivid designs and strong voice work all around. From the music to the casting, there's little in this world that doesn't actively work to draw you deeper in.
But you break up and beat your head in with it! The Witcher 2 is bold, inspired, and not afraid to take some risks, but neither does it work overly hard to endear itself to less patient players. In the end, though, it's a no-brainer of a deal. This standout RPG is among the best in years, and one that simply begs for multiple playthroughs. If you have any sort of affection for this sort of game, you can't afford to miss it.